Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 4th episode of The Space Adventures with Neel, otherwise known as Skeleton Crew. And I'm having so much fun with this series. This episode is of course directed by the Daniels this time around, who just came off their Oscar win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I think this is my favorite episode of the series so far, mainly because I think it does the best job so far of balancing the character dynamics, the mystery of Aten, and also just a very hyper-focused arc for Neel himself, who is the greatest character inside of this show. And this will of course be a spoiler review, so if you have not had a chance to watch this episode yet, go check it out on Disney+, come back here, and let's just jump right into it. So where we last left off in this series, we had Kim, the owl creature from the last episode, give these coordinates to our main characters to go off to find their home supposedly of Aten, and in this episode we get to see them fly in to this planet that is very reminiscent of Aten, but once they do arrive, it is actually called Akron instead, and it is basically a bizarro version of their own world. It looks like their, same style of houses, their same style of schools, and their same style of the suburban life, although it is war-torn. It is kind of destroyed by all these years of destruction, essentially. It is basically what Aten would look like if a war started 100 years ago, and this is the remnants of what we had left. And this had a lot of gears spinning inside of my head as to what the actual mystery of Aten is, and I have so many more theories now, especially with this episode, because the last episode we kind of established that there were 9 mysterious planets that were kind of out in the galaxy that were kind of hidden, and all of them were destroyed except for Aten, this, mysterious treasure planet that everybody, at least all these pirates, are looking for. And now that we get to see one of these other planets and get to see how maybe it started off the same way, and it started off as a suburban life thing, and maybe it crumbled because of the government did some sort of thing to make the people revolt or make some sort of revolution or to have some sort of, political collapse inside of their system. I think that is what is going on here. I think that maybe it was 9 planets that were made by either the Empire or made by the Republic or something to see what type of government would be stable enough to last, decades essentially, to last a very long time. And at least that is how I'm kind of piecing things together here, is this version of this government collapsed. It did not work, it did not last, whereas Aten's survived. And I really love this idea because I think that Star Wars has always been political to some extent, especially those original movies, and I think that makes sense in the world of Star Wars to have some sort of, overall galactic government, again, like I said, whether it is the Republic or the Empire, to create this system of control and to see what works, because that is what Aten, kind of was in those first couple episodes. You get to see how controlling they were. They literally have the children take these, tests that kind of divide them into whatever work they're going to be. You can't live in a society where you can dream and do all these great things. You are kind of forced to be exactly what the government wants you to be, and because of this control, maybe it is a little more lasting, but is it actual peace? Is it actually a good way to run this world? And I think that is what we're going to uncover in these next couple of episodes, and to see what are the differences between these 9 planets, and why did Akron actually fall apart? Why is it such a war-torn place? It's an interesting idea to place inside of this, children's Star Wars television series, but I think it works. And also take this with a grain of salt, because I could be completely wrong here. At least that's the perspective that I'm coming in to see, the oversight and the control that the planet of Aten kind of feels like it has, just based on that first episode with the, very controlling, droids and the policing system that they have inside that first episode. And is that a system that you want to tear down? Because again, it is a very safe system. It created, Neel. Neel is a product of that society that is, peaceful, and his interactions with the characters on this war-torn planet, especially this girl that you meet named HAYNA, who's a part of this rebellion group on this planet too. I guess their dynamic with, how this group works, highlighting the children into being their own little child soldiers is a really messed up thing. But in general, the HAYNA character kind of represented the future of this group, because she is the daughter of the leader of this group, and one day she's going to be the own leader, and she's going to have to run this place by herself. And she takes a lot of, the perspective from Neel, of being somebody who is very peaceful and wanting to work things out. And, even if she thinks that at face value that his perspective on this war is a weakness of his, and because of that it's lacking of bravery, she does kind of take that philosophy that he kind of leads off with her by the end of the episode, and that kind of goes the opposite way to Neel, where Neel kind of takes a piece of her bravery into his own actions against SM-33. And that's another reason why I really like this episode, because yeah, it does unravel, or at least, answer the questions of the mystery of Aten with even more questions, gets me even more, enraptured with the mystery of this series. But it also gives a really great arc to one of my favorite characters in the series, because to see Neel stand up against SM-33 was one of the greatest moments in this show so far. I honestly really, really love that moment. To see his bravery and to see him pass out at the end of the episode because of it was hysterical. I think that Neel is a highlight of this show, and this episode was my favorite for his by far. But you also get some really great moments between JOD and Fern in this episode, which I actually really like their dynamic as they're building through these few episodes. And I really like that, Fern is a character that really wants to, stand up and pretend that she is an adult, to pretend essentially that she can handle all these situations. She's the one that stood up against SM-33 in the first couple episodes, saying that she is the captain of the ship and she's going to lead them back home. And as we get to see her dynamic with JOD and how, she is very untrustworthy of him. She's very skeptical of this, Jedi character. At least he's claiming to be a Jedi. And she was very right in that, skepticism and that, I guess, hesitant in letting this guy try to lead the party. She's the one that's kind of keeping him at bay and keeping him in line, and I really like that dynamic. But when this character gets themselves in this situation where you're on this war-torn planet and this group is essentially putting them in the front lines to go into battle, and she gets very scared by that, it's a very interesting dynamic to see her kind of go off and break down in tears, because she's starting to lose that facade that she has been holding on to this entire time of bravery, and she gets to see that Neel is the one that gets to stand up in bravery and save her, essentially. And I really like that dynamic and that character is kind of facing with her own, I guess, imposter syndrome inside of all this as well, and I'm very curious to see where that character's arc ends up in the next episode. I also like the fact that Wim is a character to console Fern inside of this very intimate and very, I guess, vulnerable moment for her, because, this is the character that's been kind of flying by the seat of his own pants and been very reckless in all of this, and he saw what this recklessness can possibly get them into actual serious danger, and he's the one to say that she's been the one that has been holding people together to kind of, let her know that imposter syndrome, she has been doing better than he ever would have as a captain. And so I also really like the dynamic between those two characters as well. KB is also the character that has kind of just been in the background. She hasn't had too much to do. She had a little bit in that last episode, being the one to, stay back and listen to Kim's advice at the very end, to not trust JOD and to, do all these things that she is essentially trying to do to keep things together. She's a very smart and intellectual one that knows how to fly the ship, but I don't think she has as strong of arcs as characters like Neel, Fern, and Wim do. And also JOD, I do think, is very good inside of this show. I really do like Jude Law's performance here. He's very, very funny inside of this series, and the way he bounces off of these child actors is absolutely wonderful. I think this is a dynamic that I haven't really seen in a show like this or in a movie where it's, a bunch of kids with maybe one adult going on some, grand adventure, whether it's a pirate adventure or a space adventure or a space pirate adventure. This is very much something straight out of Goonies and straight out of Flight of the Navigator and stuff like that I really, really do enjoy. But also, let's talk about SM-33, because I think this is another little piece of the puzzle that I think is very fascinating, because yes, this ship that these kids found inside of that first episode was kind of lodged and buried in the ground on At, and so how did it get there? Who was his original captain? I think that is a question that I didn't really consider in that first episode, because I thought, oh, well, we're probably never going to learn who the captain of that original ship is. But I actually have a new theory when it comes to SM-33, because this guy has kind of kept the secret of At, and whenever you asked him a question about it, he said,
"Can't say I remember no At-Atting."
We know.
And Fern is the one to piece together that maybe this captain, he kind of programmed SM-33 to have this kind of deflection whenever he is asked about At, and in the very same way that she kind of had her own droid back at home in the first episode deflect if her mother asked her about where she was instead of, being at school, which is a great callback, which just to go to show how good of writing that a show like this can have if it can call back to very small and very seemingly insignificant moments earlier on, but to see how this character uses that information later on in the series, I love that sort of stuff. But if SM-33 is asked a question about At and he deflects it at first, and once, she digs inside and says to, she's the captain now, reveal what your secrets actually are, and this captain also had a I guess, backup plan in case somebody tried to do that, to say, if anybody tries to dig deeper into this, to tear those people apart limb by limb. And now you make SM-33, this character that's been a very fun kind of sidekick the entire time, to be an actual terrifying presence. And that is why you get directors like the Daniels to direct this sort of thing, because the locked off camera shot on SM-33 as he's going against these kids was absolutely terrifying. I love shots like that, and that's something the Daniels are really good at, and it was a very thrilling sequence to see at the end of this episode, which again ties us back to what Neel did in his bravery of distracting SM-33 before JOD can, power cycle him off. And this is just such a great ending to this episode, because now I have another question of, if this captain did program this droid to hide all this evidence once they got onto At, and where is he now? I never kind of considered who this captain could be, but maybe he, got onto At and decided to take over this government oversight thing. And maybe, you know, An wasn't as strong on actual, you know, government oversight at first, and maybe once he did get onto the planet, he kind of weaseled his way into a leadership position, and now he is controlling all these people. And so maybe there's different layers. Maybe we will meet this captain a little bit later on. So maybe there is an end to this story where, yes, maybe we do liberate and maybe we do get rid of the strong government oversight, but we get to keep that peaceful nature that the people of An have, you know, lived with for all their lives. And I think there's a nice little balance to see where the show is going to end here. And there's a lot of puzzle pieces that we've gotten in the past 4 episodes of this show that make this extremely intriguing. I think we have 3 episodes left in this series, and I am so locked in. I am so on board. I think this was the best episode yet because, again, it does a great job at balancing that mystery, tying in these character arcs and tying in these fun moments with characters like Neel and SM33, and making these things also scary and having a lot of peril for a kid's show that's just extremely entertaining. And it's everything you'd want from a Star Wars series that is essentially Goonies in space. I love it. But those are just going to be my thoughts on episode 4 of Skeleton Crew. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, with these Skeleton Crew reviews, I'm going to be doing a giveaway for a digital copy of Spider-Man No Way Home. So if you do leave a comment in any of these videos, by the end of the series, I'll be giving away a digital copy of that because, you know, John Watts is the showrunner of this. He directed No Way Home. It just makes sense to me. And so, of course, if you did enjoy this video as well, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. I just talked about Kraven the Hunter and the whole Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, and I ranked all those movies because that has been a cinematic universe that has now come to an end. Go check out that video. I had a lot of fun talking about that movie as well, and of course I'll be talking about more movies here in the future. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next one.